Good evening. So I'm here to describe my senior project and what it is and what my essay is and how it helped me, the research from my essay helped me with my senior project. So, did you know that over 50% of all man-made items use welding in some type of form throughout its process? That effectively makes it one of the most impactful jobs in the world. But before I go on about welding and my project, I want to tell you about what inspired me to go into my senior project. So one of the first things that inspired me to go into it is what my job is. So my job right now is flooring, which is a type of construction. So I get to see welders occasionally, and I was interested in it. So I got to explore it a couple of times, doing it with my friends. So it's not my first time, but I don't know anything about it still. The next thing that inspired me is that my brother has done it, and he made a trailer from scratch. I thought that was really cool, so I decided for my senior project I was going to do something like that. And lastly, I want to keep my options open and see what it's like in case I want to do a job like using welding. So what was my essay about, and how did it help me with my research, and how did it help me with my actual project? So my research paper was about shield metal arc welding, gas tungsten arc welding, and gas metal arc welding. And shielded arc welding is one of the most simple forms. You usually see it outside because it's very simple and you don't have to worry about very many things impacting the weld. The second way is gas tungsten arc welding. This is a very precise type of welding. This is used in medical stuff. This is used in anything that needs precision work when you're welding. And the very last type is gas metal arc welding. This is the type I used during my project. It is very simple. It's the easiest to learn, arguably, and you see it in production lines with cars because it's just so easy to learn and anyone can do it. And so what my project is restoring this trailer. So you might ask what needs restoring about this, and what needs restored is this wood top on it. The wood top is old, it's falling apart, and I wanted something different on it. If you look on the left photo, you can see that the wood is even coming up on its own. But when I actually went to remove it, it was not that easy to remove. It took me around 5 hours to remove the wood alone, and then additional hours on top of that to get rid of the metal screws holding it down because they were so rusted I had to grind them out because I couldn't take them out. So during that process, I learned how to use a grinder to grind down the old screws. I learned how to use a crowbar to pry off the old wood so I can have room to put on metal that I wanted to later. In addition to the wood, I needed to remove old pieces of metal that was on the trailer that would impact the later process. So I used this thing called a melting torch. This torch is going to help me melt off any additional metal that I didn't want. And it's a fairly simple thing. It's like a Bunsen burner that you would find in any of your science classes. It uses two types of gases, acetylene and oxygen, to make a very hot torch. In fact, 6,300 Fahrenheit hot. And that's plenty hot to melt any metal that you're going to need. And that's why I chose this method to cut off the extra metal. And to get to the actual welding part of it, this is my brother. He helped me. He has several years of experience. He's taken lots of classes, and he's the one that did the trailer that inspired me to start doing mine. But before we talk about why I welded, what is welding? Welding is what joins two metals together using heat or pressure to combine them. And you might be wondering why wouldn't you use just glue or something, is because welding is the strongest method to put two pieces of metal together. It is so strong, in fact, that they decide to use it in skyscrapers and automobiles and even life-saving equipment in hospitals. So what I learned, how I learned to weld, is I use a MIG welder, and it's a very simple welder. It's what most people start on, and I learned this Z technique, and it's a very simple, it's the starter level, but it's one of the strongest methods nonetheless. And I also learned what a bad weld looks like and what a good weld looks like. So the left weld is what a good weld looks like. You can see it has good connection on it. And then this bottom weld on that right angle is what a bad weld looks like. And what makes it a bad weld is that it's not fully connecting the two sides. You can see gaps in between it, and it's not fully connected, which is not a very good weld. And then what I decided to put on the trailer instead of the wood that would make it a better trailer overall is expanded metal sheets. These are very strong. They last for a lifetime, and they have one main issue with them though, is that they tend to bend over time, but they won't break on you, but they do bend. And there's things you can do to reduce this. What I did was I added more metal supports in between the gaps of the trailers so it wouldn't bend on me as often. And through my research on my paper and through the research on my own, I learned that between 24 inches and 16 inches is the gap you're aiming for between each support to support the metal sheets. But I decided to go with the 16 inches because this will supply more support underneath the metal, making it bend less and giving me more time to enjoy my trailer. Some tools that help you weld is, this is a clamp. You clamp it onto the metal you want to put on and the metal existing to hold it into place before you start welding the two pieces together forever. And then I also have these magnets, the red magnets in the photo, and that helps it keep it flush, and it helps it keep it up next to the metal where you want to make it stay forever. And what I learned from this overall project, putting this new metal sheet on, is that I learned the different types of welding. I learned this through my research and through my paper. And I also learned how to use a cutting torch. I used the cutting torch for cutting off the extra pieces of metal on the trailer while I was tearing out everything. And then I learned how to use a grinder to get rid of the old screws that was holding down the wood that were going to get in the way of the metal sheeting. And then I learned how to weld. I learned how to weld the supports on, and on top of that, how to weld the sheets so they don't move on you and to stay there. And then I learned how hard it is. As a potential job, knowing how hard it is essential to judge what you want to do in your life. And judging how hard and the wages, I can now see if I want to do that as a job. And then this is all the photos I took, and that is the trailer with the metal sheets and welding and cutting. And thank you for listening.